to the second of my series of videos that I am proud to present to you guys this year, and that of course is my gratitude project for helping me get to 2,000 subscribers, my shelf tour. And you guys have probably already been overwhelmed by what you saw in the last video where we went through all of my DVDs and Blu-rays in regards to television shows and movies, but that is just the tip of the iceberg, everybody. There are so many more collections in this house that I am so excited to show to you guys in some shape or form, and I am very excited to continue on with this amazing tour, and I really hope that you have been enjoying it so far, even though there is only so much more that we're going to discuss. So today, we're going to be taking a look at another extremely big passion of mine, which is the world of music. And as someone who is very much into physical media, I still do collect CDs. So I'm looking forward to showing you guys my music collection for the very first time. So yeah, I am sure that this looks very familiar to you guys. You've seen this already before. This is my shelf that I have on the other side of the room that I record all of my videos in. So just for a little perspective, there is where I record my videos. There's the couch, and there of course are all of my Blu-rays and DVDs. But yeah, we're now officially going to be looking at the other side of this room, which is probably to many everybody's favorite room when they come to visit, just because all the cool stuff is here. So I am very excited to officially begin this little tour of my music collection. So just before we get into it, there are a couple of CDs all the way over there at the bottom, as you can see. I'll show you them a little bit later, but basically those are just a couple of mixes that I've made, and I really don't necessarily feel that we need to go into them. It's basically from a couple of bands that I do like, but just never got any of their albums, like The Offspring, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Duran Duran, some bands that I just feel like their greatest hits albums, I could have made them so much better, and a couple of other little pet projects, so not necessarily something that I think you guys would be interested in, but if you are, I will definitely give you guys an understanding of what is there. So let's begin. So of course I had to get on the stepladder again because we have to start from the top and we're going to work our way down, and we're going to do a little time traveling. We're going to go from the late 1950s all the way to 2020. It is going to be a fun journey, and I'm just excited to show you all of these great bands that I listen to. And if you see something on the shelf that is not a CD but very interested in it, don't worry everybody, the time will come. So we're going to start off with the Beach Boys' Greatest Hits Volumes 1, 2, and 3. I have all the Beatles albums. So we've got Please Please Me, we've got With the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night, Beatles for Sale, Help, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, we've got Magical Mystery Tour, a special anniversary edition of the White Album. As you can see, it is definitely a different shape, but it's got 30th anniversary, and there's also an authentication number. We've also got the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, Abbey Road, Let It Be, both Past Masters albums, all 3 anthology albums, and Beatles Love, which is based on their show in Vegas. We also have the Across the Universe soundtrack, which to me is also a Beatles album. We've also got 40 Licks, which is the Rolling Stones' greatest hits, and we've got the Ultimate Collection of The Who's greatest hits. Moving on to the next one, we've got the very best of Cream, we've got the very best of Jimi Hendrix and The Experience, I've got all of Led Zeppelin except for Coda, so we've got Led Zeppelin 2, 3, Zoso or 4, whatever you want to call it, Houses of Holy, Physical Graffiti, Presence, and In Through the Outdoor. I've got not all of Pink Floyd, but I am a big Pink Floyd fan, and I got all the albums that I really did want to get. So I have Piper at the Gates of Dawn, A Saucer Full of Secrets, Atom Heart Mother, Metal, Obscured by Clouds, The Dark Side of the Moon, of course, iconic album. It's The Prism, like, everybody knows The Prism. Wish You Were Here, Animals, The Wall, double album, and that's all I've got for them. I've also got Monsters, which is the greatest hits by Alice Cooper. I have Black Sabbath, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. I also have the Essential Ozzy Osbourne. I also have Black Sabbath, The Dio Years, which is a very interesting take and sound compared to what Ozzy Osbourne had. I also have Yes's greatest hits, Chicago's greatest hits. They are a fantastic band. I love, love, love Chicago. Derek and the Dominoes, Layla, which is the one album that this band ever made. Of course, it also has the famous song written by Eric Clapton, Layla. Styx's Greatest Hits, the best of Blue Oyster Cult, the very best of Kiss. I have Aerosmith's Pandora's Box and Aerosmith Big One, so it is Aerosmith's Greatest Hits from the 1970s to the early 1980s, and Big Ones is from the late 1980s to 1990. Why they're in that order, I don't know, but I'm not going to edit it out. Genesis, Turn It On Again, which is their greatest hits. Queen, The Platinum Collection, which is their greatest hits 1, 2, and 3. I've also got Rush Retrospective, which is volumes 1, 2, and 3. Love Rush so much. The very best of Fleetwood Mac and Fleetwood Mac's live album of the Dance, which featured 4 new songs. Boston's Greatest Hits. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Greatest Hits. The very best of Daryl Hall and John Oates. I love Hall & Oates. The Ramones Anthology. The Clash's Greatest Hits, Cheap Trick's Greatest Hits, Foreigner's Complete Greatest Hits, The Essential Judas Priest, Journey's Greatest Hits, Van Halen. I've got Van Halen, Van Halen 2, Women and Children First, Fair Warning, Diver Down, 1984, and their album that came out in the 2000s. I had to pick it up. I don't have any Hagar, but this featured David Lee Roth's return, and it is a different kind of truth, and I love it. It is classic Van Halen. Moving on into the late 70s, early 80s, even though we were already there, here are all of my albums from Iron Maiden. We're getting into some metal here, everybody. So I've got Iron Maiden, Killers, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Power Slave, Somewhere in Time, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, The Best of the Beast, which is their greatest hits pretty much from this entire generation, as well as the 90s. And then I've got their albums from when Bruce Dickinson made his return: Brave New World, Dance of Death, A Matter of Life and Death, Final Frontier, and you probably saw this in the last video, but this was their last album, Iron Maiden, The Book of Souls. It was their 2-disc special edition, and there's so many amazing special features there. And now we'll move on to some more metal. We've got the very best of Def Leppard. We've also got Metallica, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All, Metallica's Black Album, and Metallica's S&M, which was them with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. It is definitely a very good live album. We've got Anthrax's Greatest Hits. We've got Megadeth. I've got Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good. Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? So Far, So Good, So What? Rust in Peace, Countdown to Extinction, Euthanasia, Cryptic Writings, Hidden Treasures, which features 99 Ways to Die, which was from the Beavis and Butthead Experience, The World Needs a Hero, The System Has Failed, United Abominations, Endgame, 13, and Super Collider, and Dystopia. I've got Poison's Greatest Hits and Poison's album Poisoned, which is actually a collection of covers that they did. Very good covers, as a matter of fact. And now we're getting into the grunge age, even though there were some bands that actually came out in the 1980s in regards to that. We've got Soul Asylum, the very best. You probably have heard of them. I had no idea they even came out in the 1980s, so it was cool to actually know that they did. Motley Crue's Red, White, and Crew, which is their greatest hits. Guns N' Roses, I've got Appetite for Destruction, Lies, Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. I've also got a ton of Nine Inch Nails. I am a very big Nine Inch Nails fan. I've got their very first album, Pretty Hate Machine, their EP of Broken, Downward Spiral, the double album Fragile, With Teeth, Year Zero, the soundtracks that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross made that are available on CD. I classify them as Nine Inch Nails albums. So I've got the Social Network soundtrack, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo soundtrack, and the Gone Girl soundtrack. And I've also got Hesitation Marks, as well as a whole bunch of EPs. For some strange reason, the name is not on this one, but this one is called Not the Actual Events. Then we've got Add Violence and Bad Witch. And then we've got Toad the Wet Sprocket's Greatest Hits. We've got Primus's Greatest Hits, Alice in Chains, Nothing Is Safe, The Best of the Box, and Soundgarden's A-Sides. Continuing on into the era of grunge, we've got Rearview Mirror, which is Pearl Jam's greatest hits from 1991 to 2003. I've got Nirvana's Bleach, Nevermind, Incesticide, and In Utero. I've got Pantera, Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar Display of Power, Beyond, Driven, The Great Southern Trendkill, and Inventing the Steel. I am also a huge Green Day fan. Green Day was basically what got me out of the 1960s and 50s. I listened to a lot of oldies when I was growing up. Green Day was the one that really got me to finally branch out and discover music from my own time. I've got 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours, Kerplunk, Dookie, which is the first CD I ever purchased. This is still the original one. Insomniac, Nimrod, Warning, Shenanigans, American Idiot, 21st Century Breakdown, Uno, Dos, and Tre, Revolution Radio, and Father of All the Motherfuckers. I've got the Cranberries' greatest hits, which is called Stars. I'm also a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. I have a lot of their albums as well. I've got Gish, I've got Pisces Iscariot, Siamese Dream, the double album Melancholy of the Infinite Sadness, Adore, and we're going to Machina, The Machines of God, Zwan, which was Billy Corgan's Happy Pumpkins album, as I call it, and Mary Star of the Sea, Zeitgeist, Oceana, Monuments to an Elegy, and Shiny and Oh So Bright. Dream Theater, which I actually did a Gnome doc for. We're going to now go into a couple of bands that you probably have never heard of. Dream Theater is probably one of them. But I've got Images and Words, Awake, A Chains of Seasons, Falling into Infinity, Scenes from a Memory, 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, Train of Thought. I've got their lead singer, who is actually a former opera singer. His solo album, James LeBrie's Elements of Persuasion. It was his debut. There's more, but this is the one that I actually picked up that I like. Octavarium, Systematic Chaos, Black Clouds and Silver Lining, A Dramatic Turn of Events, their self-titled 13th album, The Astonishing, which was their take on a rock opera, and Distance Over Time, which came out last year, and it is fantastic. We're now going to take a look at the power metal / melodic metal band from Germany, Blind Guardian. I've got Tales from the Twilight World, Somewhere Far Beyond, Imaginations from the Other Side, Nightfall in Middle Earth, Night at the Opera, Twist in the Myth, At the Edge of Time, Beyond the Red Mirror, and the best album of 2019, which was The Blind Guardian with the Twilight Orchestra album, Legacy of the Darklands. And now, of course, there's a band that you probably have heard of that is, of course, live. We've got Mental Jewelry, Throwing Copper, Secret Samadhi, Distance to Here, 5, Birds of Prey, Songs from the Black Mountain, and The Turn. And now one of my favorite bands from the world of metal, Iced Earth. Just like Dream Theater, I've got tons of their albums. I have their first self-titled, Night of the Storm Rider, Burnt Offerings, Iced Earth's album, The Dark Saga, which of course is based around the story of Todd McFarlane's Spawn. And I love the fact that Todd McFarlane gave them the permission and even put Spawn on the cover. I absolutely love that. And the same goes with Iced Earth's Days of Purgatory. That is also a comic book character. That is Purgatory. She's an independent character, and this is basically their greatest hits, just remastered from the first couple of years of this band's activity. And then we've got Something Wicked This Way Comes. We have their triple album of Alive in Athens, which is incredible. Their live albums are so awesome. Horror Show, which is basically their take on classic horror movie monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, etc. Tribute to the Gods, which is their cover album of bands like AC/DC, Black Sabbath, and Kiss. We've also got Glorious Burden, which is about world history. Very cool. They've got a 23-minute long song about the Battle of Gettysburg on this album. It is crazy. Framing Armageddon and The Crucible of Man, which is their Something Wicked duology. We've got Dystopia, another album that I got that's called Dystopia, crazy about that. We've also got another live album, which is Live at Ancient Corion, which is also fantastic. Plagues of Babylon, and their latest album, Incorruptible. I'm really looking forward to getting their newest album whenever it comes out. Moving on to another greatest hits album, we've got 311's greatest hits, and then we've got another band that I cannot wait for a new album to come out, which is Daft Punk. This grouping also includes a soundtrack because it pretty much is another Daft Punk album, but I've got Discovery, which of course features one of my favorite songs one more time, Human After All, the Tron Legacy soundtrack, and Random Access Memory, which is probably one of the greatest albums that I've ever heard, period. I've got Oasis's greatest hits, Stop the Clocks. I've got Jeff Buckley's Grace. That is the only album that he ever made. He unfortunately died while swimming in the Mississippi River, and he was caught under the current. One of my other favorite bands from my childhood and basically my teen years, which is Blink-182. I've got Cheshire Cat, Dude Ranch, Enema of the State, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, their self-titled album, which now is my favorite album in their entire collection, Neighborhoods, which has got my favorite song of theirs, California, and their latest album, 9, which is great. Korn's greatest hits, Everclear, which is the first band that I ever saw in concert. So I've got Sparkle and Fade, So Much for the Afterglow, Songs from an American Movie Volumes 1 and 2, Slow Motion Daydream, Welcome to the Drama Club, Invisible Stars, and Black is the New Black. Now we're going to move on to Weezer. Weezer was a band that I found when I was 13, and then they went on that massive dry spell, and then in 2001 they just came right back, and they haven't stopped since. So we've got their self-titled album, which is kind of funny because they got a lot of self-titles, so we basically ended up giving them colors. So we've got the Blue Album, Pinkerton, the Green Album, Maladroit, Make Believe, the Red Album, Ratitude, Hurley, Everything Will Be Alright in the End, the White Album, Pacific Daydream, the Teal Album, which is actually a cover album. This is the one that actually includes their cover of Africa, which a lot of people absolutely love. And down here, I've got the Black Album, and their newest album, Van Weezer, will be coming out later on this month, and I'm really looking forward to reviewing it. Then we've got the very best of the Gin Blossoms going into another copy of Blink-182's California. There's the original over there, and this was a special release that came out a few months later, and it actually has an extra CD of music, so had to get them both. If anybody wants the original, you're welcome to have it. Just let me know. I'll send it to you. And then we've got the Foo Fighters albums, as I said, so we've got their self-titled Color and Shape, which is probably one of the greatest albums ever made. There's Nothing Left to Lose, One by One, In Your Honor, Echoes, Silence, Patience, and Grace, Wasting Light, Sonic Highways, which is one of the coolest concept albums I've ever heard, and Concrete and Gold. We got the greatest hits of Garbage, which is called Absolute Garbage. And then we've got Semisonic, which was a short-lived band, but I love them. We've got The Great Divide, Feeling Strangely Fine, and All About Chemistry. Then we're moving on to another one of my favorite bands, and that is Matchbox 20. I was a fan of theirs when they first came out, and I haven't looked back. So we've got Yourself or Someone Like You, The Mad Season, More Than You Think You Are, their greatest hits album, which also includes a disc of new music, Exile on Mainstream, and North. Third Eye Blind, another band that I absolutely love. We've got their self-titled, we've got Blue, Out of the Vein, Ursa Major, Dopamine, which the name is not even there, neither was Out of the Vein, so I had to make do, and of course Screamer, which was their newest album that came out last year. I've also got the greatest hits of Marilyn Manson. I've got Creed's albums except for their fourth one, so I've got My Own Prison, Human Clay, and Weathered. I've also got Fuel's albums. I've got Sunburn, Something Like Human, Natural Selection, Angels and Devils, and Puppet Strings. Another one of my favorite bands, which is Nightwish. I've definitely got a nice collection here. I've got their self-titled debut, Oceanborn, Wishmaster, their single Over the Hills and Far Away, which is just a fantastic song. I had to have it on CD. I've also got Century Child, Dark Passion Play, Imaginarium, Endless Forms Most Beautiful, and their newest album, which is basically a rock opera of Frozen, Human to Nature. A review will be coming soon. Another band that I loved growing up was the band Eve 6, so I've got their self-titled, Horoscope, It's All in Your Head, and Speak in Code. System of a Down, I've got their self-titled, Toxicity, and their double, Mesmerize and Hypnotize, still waiting for their big comeback. I've also got a couple of albums from the band Lit. I've got A Place in the Sun, Atomic, and The View from the Bottom. Lacuna Coil is a band that I do like, but I really don't listen to them anymore, but I do have some of their albums. I've got In a Revelry, I've got Unleashed Memories, Comalize, and The Karma Code, which has an amazing cover of Depeche Mode's Enjoy the Silence. Stroke 9, I've got their first two albums, which is Nasty Little Thoughts and Rip It Off. Orgy just made a big comeback with their newest EP, and I cannot wait to talk about it. So I've got Candy Ass, Vapor Transmission, Punk Static, Paranoia, and there it is, Talk Sick, their newest one. We've also got American Pearl, which was a short-lived band from the late 90s. I saw them on tour with Creed, and they actually were pretty good. I had to get their album. And then we've got albums from Disturbed. I've got The Sickness, Believe, 10,000 Fists, Indestructible, Asylum, Immortal, and Evolution, which is a very underappreciated album. I've also got the first two albums from Linkin Park, which are The Hybrid Theory and Meteora. I've got 9 Days, which is The Maddening Crowd, a band called Dust for Life. It was their first album, and I don't even know if they made any more, but I did like this one. It sort of sounded like Nine Inch Nails and Soundgarden and all that stuff. I've got 3 albums from SR71, Now You See Inside, Tomorrow, and Here We Go Again, the US edition. Another band that you probably heard of if you're somewhere around my age but completely forgot about them. They're still making albums, and that is Hoobastank. I've got their first album as well as The Reason, Every Man for Himself, For Never, Fight or Flight, and their newest album, which is called Push Pull. I've also got the 2 albums from The Calling, which are Camino Palomero and 2, and I'm also a big fan of Coldplay. I've got Parachutes, A Rush of Blood to the Head, X and Y, Viva La Vida, Death and All His Friends, and I'm going to open this one up because there actually is something on the inside. There was also a little EP that came out after, which was called The Prospects March. It has a couple of new songs as well as a couple of extensions to older songs in that album, as well as a few additional goodies. And then we have Milo Xyloto, we have Ghost Stories, A Head Full of Dreams, and right up here is their newest album, Everyday Life, which is definitely extremely unique. And there is another CD on the next shelf, and this is a Kaleidoscope EP. It is a other little thing that came out, and it actually includes the song that they did with the Chainsmokers, which was very, very popular a couple years back. And then we've got an artist named Pete Yorn. He is definitely an awesome writer. I love his music. So I've got Music for the Morning After, The Day I Forgot, Nightcrawler, Back and Forth, PY, which is his self-titled 5th album, and Arranging Time. The White Stripes were a band that I really liked. I really wish that they didn't leave when they did, but we've got Deja Still, White Blood Cells, Elephant, Icky Thump, and Get Behind Me, Satan. Revis, which is a band that I heard thanks to the Daredevil soundtrack, but they never really did anything after this specific album that they made, and it was called Places for Breathing. Then we've got a band that I wish I didn't abandon, and that, of course, is Maroon 5. But I've got songs about Jane, It Won't Be Soon Before Long, Hands All Over, Overexposed, and 5. The Darkness, which is a band that I absolutely love. I've got Permission to Land, One Way Ticket to Hell and Back, Hotcakes, Last of Our Kind, Pinewood Smile, and their latest album, Easter is Cancelled. The Killers are another band that I absolutely love. Got into them when they first debuted, and they've got another album coming out this year, so I'm really excited to listen to it. So, of course, I've got Hot Fuzz, Sam's Town, Sawdust, which is a bunch of B-sides, Day and Age, Battleborn, and Wonderful, Wonderful. Alter Bridge, which is basically what Creed became, but it just doesn't have the voice of Scott Stapp, which means it's much better. Miles Kennedy is a much better vocalist. So we've got One Day Remains, Blackbird, AB3, Fortress, The Last Hero, and Walk the Sky. And then we've got another band that I'm really surprised decided to fade out when they did, because they really were fantastic, and that, of course, is The Fray. I've got How to Save a Life, their second album, which is self-titled, Scars and Stories, which is one of the greatest albums I ever heard, and their 4th album, Helios. Paramore, it's a big fan favorite for many people that I know here on YouTube, so I've got All We Know Is Falling, Riot, Brand New Eyes, their self-titled 4th album, Paramore, and of course, After Laughter, which is such an amazing album. And then we're going to look at The Script, which is another band that I absolutely love. Another great band from Ireland, alongside U2 and the Cranberries. So we've got their self-titled album, The Script, and then we've got Science and Faith, Number 3, No Sounds Without Silence, Freedom Child, and Sunsets and Full Moons, which is a beautiful album. And then we've got Adam Young's brainchild, Owl City. I just wish that he would continue to put his albums out on CD, but he doesn't. So we've got Maybe I'm Dreaming, Ocean Eyes, All Things Bright and Beautiful, Midsummer Station, and Mobile Orchestra. And then we've got a band called the Wombats that I was introduced to thanks to my friends over at the Friday Five, and I have 2 of their albums, which are Glitterbug and Beautiful People Will Ruin Your Life. And then I've got Fun, which was their second album, Some Nights. Not many people know that Some Nights was actually the Fun's sophomore release, and at this point in time, I don't think they're coming back anytime soon. And then we've got the albums of Imagine Dragons, so I've got Night Visions, Smoke and Mirrors, Evolve, and Origins. And then we've got another band that I'm really surprised has not made another album. They're from Australia, I believe, and they really fall into the vein of bands like the 1975, and it also has a really big 80s sound. They're called Strange Talk, and this was their album Castaway. And speaking of the 1975, I've got the albums of the 1975, so of course I've got their debut, and then I've got I Love It When You Sleep, For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. And then, of course, A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, and yes, their new album is finally coming out this year, and I'm really looking forward to finally listening to Notes on a Conditional Form. Churches, which is a band that I just recently got into, and I absolutely love them, so I've got The Bones of What You Believe, Every Open Eye, and Love Is Dead. And then I've got the American Authors, which is a band that I really do like, and I've got Oh What a Life and What We Live For. Walk the Moon, which is another band that I really like. I'm waiting for American Authors, Churches, and Walk the Moon to give me some new albums, so of course I've got Talking Is Hard and What If Nothing. And then I've got a band that I'm really not a fan of. I tried to get into them, and that, of course, was the Chainsmokers. They did a lot of EPs and singles, but I did get their first album, which was Memories Do Not Open, and honestly, I didn't like it. There's a couple of songs on here that are okay, but I really have no intentions to really listen to it again, so I have no idea what I'm going to do with this album. But one of the bands that I really do like is the novelty that is Baby Metal. I don't have their first album because I'm not really a big fan of it, but I've got Metal Resistance and Metal Galaxy, which came out last year, and I loved that album. Then I've got a band that not that many people know about, and I really hope that they make a new album because I really did like this one, and the band is called The Night Game, and this is their self-titled. And then we've got another band that just recently came out called Pale Waves, and their album is called My Mind Makes Noises, and it is great. And then I've got Alice Merton's album, which is Mint. Cap this all off, I also have a couple of film soundtracks that I just had to hold on to. I had a lot more at one point, but I got rid of them all. But the ones that I did think were worth keeping were the albums of all 3 American Pie films, not the 4th one, because I really didn't care for it that much. Titan AE's soundtrack, Mr. Hankey's Christmas Classics from South Park, the Bad News Bears original soundtrack, that is the Richard Linklater version of Bad News Bears, which is very underappreciated, the Animatrix album, which is amazing, the La La Land motion picture soundtrack, and to cap it all off, the soundtrack of Sing Street. And that's it, everybody. I really hope that you enjoyed. As I said, I've also got my wife's stuff over here, not necessarily stuff that I really want to go over, and these are just a couple of pet projects. It would just be a little bit of a burden to take them all out and just show them to you, but they're just fun little music things that I put together at one point in time just to have them, and that's pretty much it. But thank you very much for watching my second installment of my shelf tour, everybody. I really hope that everything didn't make you nauseous because, look, it's very shaky, and it's just so difficult to go through everything and pull everything out of the shelves in greater detail, but one of the few things that I am very excited about is the fact that there's going to be a lot of music reviews coming out on my channel in the coming weeks, because as I said earlier in the video, there's a new Killers album, there's a new 1975 album, there's a new Weezer album, and there's also some albums that I have in my collection that I haven't even reviewed yet for you guys, but I'm looking forward to doing that very soon. But what I'm even more excited about is the fact that I'm going to be doing 2 more recordings next week for 2 more installments on the Shelf Tour Extravaganza. But what will we be looking into next? Well, you're going to have to wait and see. So until then, I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.